Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. A corruption scandal in Ukraine's energy sector has shaken the country at a time when thousands are struggling with electricity blackouts, with the opposition calling for the government's resignation. Among the 7 people charged is one of Volodymyr Zelenskyy's closest associates, but he's fled the country. We will be back on the subject in a moment, but first, more top stories of today. Poles across the country and the world celebrate Independence Day. The Belarusian president threatens confiscation of stranded Lithuanian transport vehicles if Lithuania refuses to open borders. Does AI rob humans of their creativity? We might have an answer to this question. Exactly 107 years ago, Poland once again found its place on the map of Europe after 123 years of partition by Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Poles in the country and across the globe celebrated the day with pomp and splendor, from grand military parades to having traditional sweet treats. The day was even marked in the United States as the Empire State Building was lit up with the colors of the Polish national flag. And yet, the day of commemoration is also a source of division within Polish society. Zuzanna Jurek has more.
Polish Independence Day, November 11th, marks the day when the nation-state reappeared in European maps.
Well, it was a day in 1918 where the stars seemed to align themselves in Poland's favour. And that's what we should celebrate joyously. I know we have very great divisions in Poland, but we should celebrate being Polish.
And celebrations were joyous from the north to the south, through to the east and to the west, where in the city of Poznań, November 11th is synonymous with a particularly sweet treat consumed in celebration of the patron saint of Saint Martin.
They have a symbolic meaning, and I'm happy that Poznań celebrates November 11th in such a sweet way.
Celebrations also went global, with the jewel in the crown of Polish football, Robert Lewandowski, doing the honors of lighting up the Empire State Building in New York in red and white.
I am honored to be here on such a great day. I know that it is a great honor for all Poles and for our homeland that we can celebrate our independence together.
Back on the home soil, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk was in his home city on the Baltic coast, Gdańsk, where he urged that the concept of independence lies at the foundation of a nationhood.
We would like that on this day and always, when we gather under the red and white, that nobody is excluded, that we all say this word homeland with the same pride. No one has a monopoly on patriotism.
Back in Warsaw, the Polish defense minister urged that the ideal of sovereignty is no longer bound by territorial demarcations.
We must not forget those who are fighting beyond our eastern border, so that we can live in a safe country, so that we can live in a Europe that is not entirely engulfed by war. Together, the country's security border lies on the Ukrainian-Russian front.
But for some, the patriotic celebrations sounded more like jingoism. In Warsaw, an estimated 100,000 Poles marched under the banner of one nation, a strong Poland. And for the last couple of years, this manifestation of patriotism has been hijacked by the far right, where under a thin veil lingers deep polarization.
The march is a kind of spectacle, a theatre, where those competing parties carry out a kind of battle for the hearts and minds. The march originated in 2010, and it was organised by a group called the ONR, the Radical National Camp. It's a very, very ultra right-wing group that has its origins in pre-war fascism.
And it would appear that during this morning's celebrations, the country's right-wing president, Karol Nawrocki, did his best to set the tone for the day's events.
Looking at our country, I ask myself where our identity is, where are our Christian values, and why do we have to resist the pressure of ideologies that are foreign to us, which are a substitute for Christian values? What can we say to our politicians who are ready to hand over Poland's sovereignty and independence piece by piece to foreign institutions? foreign courts, and the foreign agenda of the European Union.
The pilgrimage by far-right activists such as Britain's Tommy Robinson to Poland's Independence Day serves to underline these marches emphasize the underling of social divisions ever more visible in Poland and in Europe. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
And now from Poland, we're moving to Ukraine as the dust is yet to settle after the first major crackdown of Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau. The scandal prompted the government to dismiss the board of state energy giant Energoatom as anti-corruption officers failed to detain Timur Mindik, President Volodymyr Zelensky's former business associate and a friend. Questions arose about the network of suspicious connections. Let's now go live to our correspondent Oz Katerji, who is in Kyiv and has more on this situation. Good evening, Oz. So how would you assess the fallout of the revelations related to the case?
Well, about an hour ago, we heard from the Prime Minister, Yulia Svyrydenko, who published a statement on her Telegram saying that the board, or the supervisory board of Energoatom, that's the state-owned nuclear power agency, had been dismissed following this anti-corruption initiative launched by the anti-corruption authorities in Ukraine, this investigation involving somewhat of $100 million worth of bribes that have been extracted from Energoatom, allegedly, according to these prosecutors who are bringing charges and have detained 5 people and have given notice of suspicion to 7 others. So this is the immediate fallout. We're also seeing some political fallout with calls from Poroshenko's opposition party for the resignation of the current cabinet of ministers. So we'll see where that develops. No word on this from President Zelenskyy, who's visiting Kherson at the moment. So he is visiting Kherson because it's the 3rd anniversary of the liberation of the city by Ukrainian forces, and all of his statements today have focused solely on military matters. But this coming from the Prime Minister definitely shows that the government is responding to what is now a 14-month-long investigation into this probe into Energoatom.
I would like us to revisit the events from July this year. In July, when Volodymyr Zelenskyy made a decision about Nabu, he was widely criticized by civil society, which is obviously a sign of a healthy democracy. Do you think that we will see more protests in the days and weeks to come in Ukraine, considering the latest findings?
Well, yes, I remember July very well. I was reporting here for you from Kyiv, from those protests. And really, the atmosphere on the ground was one of anger towards the government because they had stripped the independence of these agencies. If those protesters see that these agencies are doing their work effectively now, beginning the process of detainment, arrests and prosecutions, I suspect those protesters will be rather satisfied that things are going in the direction they want to. Ukraine still has a significant problem with corruption. So this is something that President Zelensky's administration has said they want to address in the country. So far, things seem to be going in a direction that satisfies most parties involved. Obviously, President Zelensky's former business partner is involved in this. But so far, no signs of public anger on the streets, at least, or linking Zelenskyy directly to this. And I think for now, people are just letting the anti-corruption bodies carry out their work here in Kyiv.
Thank you so much, Oz. That was Oz Katerji reporting live from Kyiv. Moving on, the crisis between Belarus and Lithuania continues as President Alexander Lukashenko threatened that around 1,000 transport vehicles stranded on Belarusian territory could be confiscated should Lithuania refuse to reopen its border crossings with Belarus. The companies in possession of these vehicles are incurring mounting costs as prolonged delays could amount to 18 million euros a month. Sonia Gatabishchan explains the complexities of the situation in her latest report.
Over 1,000 Lithuanian trucks stranded in Belarus are now subject to hefty parking fees. After denying the vehicles permission to leave the country, the Belarusian authorities pointed them to parking lots. The daily parking fee per vehicle, 120 euros. Minsk's move follows Lithuania's temporary closure of border crossings with Belarus, citing security concerns.
These actions are clearly an attempt to pressure us, but I believe our response has been appropriate. We're facing a hybrid attack. Even hot air balloons carrying smugglers are being launched against us, which is now disrupting civil aviation.
Lithuania closed 2 border crossings with Belarus following multiple incursions by weather balloons containing smuggled cigarettes. Minsk refused to open a corridor to facilitate the departure of trucks. What is more, the Belarusian president threatened to confiscate the vehicles if Lithuania does not fully reopen the border.
These trucks cost about 50 million euros. It will be very bad.
The transport dispute heated up when Alexander Lukashenko issued a decree at the end of October prohibiting Lithuanian and Polish trucks from operating in Belarus until the end of 2027. The Lithuanian Road Carriers Association suggests leaving trucks stranded could cause losses of up to 18 million euro per month.
I don't know how they speak between countries, but I think we need to make a second step.
On October 29th, Lithuania extended the border closure until the end of November. Prime Minister Inga Ruginienė asserted that if attacks against Lithuania continue, the strict measure will too. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabiščan.
Coordinating intelligence efforts under one centralized body in the face of a growing risk from Russia. That's the idea announced by the European Commission, prompted by a number of external factors, including warnings of reduced American security support to Europe. The proposal aims to promote intelligence sharing and close cooperation, and yet challenges remain, as one of the major roadblocks is distrust between member states. Randy Pauls tells us more about whether the EU will be able to overcome the challenges standing in the way of the initiative.
The European Commission has announced that it has begun setting up a new intelligence body under President Ursula von der Leyen. The unit plans to hire intelligence officials from across the EU and better coordinate intelligence sharing among member states.
The idea is that it will be a small cell, and it's meant to really also complement the work of the existing structures, notably within the External Action Service.
European External Action Service is the EU's diplomatic service. This new move is prompted by several events, including Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and U.S. President Donald Trump's warnings of reducing American security support to Europe.
I would argue that Europeans need to work much closer together, not only in intelligence, but in defense and security writ large and more broadly.
Intelligence sharing has long been a delicate subject for EU member nations. Major states such as France, with extensive spying capabilities, have been wary of sharing sensitive information with some partners, especially like Hungary, which often take pro-Russian stances. This new body aims to recruit officials from national intelligence agencies, but the full plan has not been formally communicated to all the EU's 27 member states. Randy Potts, TVP World.
The European Commission has said that 6 EU member states, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Croatia, Austria and Poland, will be able to apply for exemptions from migrant relocation efforts, which start next year. These 6 countries may receive full or partial exemptions from the EU Asylum Migration Pact due to a significant migration situation. Warsaw had opposed the introduction of the pact and, after it was adopted, strived for an exemption.
Poland is, of course, among the member states facing a significant migratory situation. And this is because Poland, as I mentioned before, has been hosting high numbers of beneficiaries of the temporary protection from Ukraine. And with our decision today, Poland can ask the Council a full or also a partial deduction from solidarity, and then the Council will decide on that.
Slovakia's transfer of MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine in 2023 was not a criminal offense. That's according to the country's prosecutor's office, which investigated the transfer as part of a criminal complaint made by the Slovakian government led by Robert Fico. 2 ministers from the previous administration came under scrutiny over the transfer agreement, with Slovakia's current defense minister even accusing them of treason. Our correspondent in Slovakia, Andrew Sweeney, has more.
The decision of Slovakia's prosecutor's office to rule that the transfer of the country's MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine was not a crime may bring to an end an investigation that began amidst accusations of treason. The news that Slovakia's transfer of MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine was not a criminal offence may bring to an end an investigation that began with accusations of treason. The prosecutor's office in Slovakia's capital Bratislava announced on Tuesday that government ministers had not overstepped their authority in transferring the Soviet-era jets to Ukraine. The previous defence minister who greenlit the transfer, Jaroslav Nyad, welcomed the ruling, saying that the previous government had acted in the best interests of Slovakia.
The government of Eduard Heger, with me as Minister of Defense, acted not only morally correctly, but also in the national interest of the Slovak Republic, and fully in accordance with applicable laws and the Constitution, in connection with the donation of the MiG-29 aircraft.
Slovakia donated its entire fleet of MiG-29 fighters in spring 2023, becoming the first country to do so since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. However, in parliamentary elections in September of the same year, Robert Fico's Smer party emerged victorious. His government subsequently pursued closer ties with Russia and cut military aid to Ukraine. The investigation into the transfer of the MiG-29 jets came at the behest of Slovakia's current defence minister, Robert Kaliňák. Last June, Kaliňák filed a criminal complaint against former Prime Minister Eduard Heger and Jaroslav Nyad over the jet transfer, accusing them of committing treason. Kaliňák has expressed his shock at the ruling. However, he did say that he believes that the result is not final. Slovakia has since replaced its MiG-29s with American-built F-16s. Prime Minister Fico has also reportedly stated that he does not support the unfreezing of Russian assets if they are going to be used to finance military costs in Ukraine. For TVP World, Andrew Sweeney.
Just a few strokes on a keyboard can be all it takes for artificial intelligence to rob people of their creativity, and the music industry is no exception. Want a Christmas carol in the style of your favorite hip-hop artist? Just feed their song and a clever prompt into AI model, or don't, because the original artist isn't receiving anything for the collaboration. Maciej Jastrzębski takes us on a deep dive into the chaotic world of AI music and a legal system that's rushing to catch up.
The Futuropolis AI and Music Conference was held on Sunday at Warsaw's Chopin University of Music and tackled the pros and cons of using large language models to write music. One of the downsides is AI's uncanny ability to mimic the styles of real artists.
If you directly ask Suno AI to create a song in the style of Lady Gaga, it will not comply. But if you feed it a clever prompt, it'll generate a song that sounds, for instance, like one by the Polish singer Natalia Schroeder. I heard lots of songs that use her style of phrasing, and still she's not paid for teaching AI her phrasing.
Artists are casting hopeful glances at the gradual implementation of the European Union's AI Act into Polish legislation. In February, regulations prohibiting the use of particularly dangerous AI systems throughout the EU came into force, followed this August by rules on the supervision of artificial intelligence.
We are currently working on the new law, which will be implemented. It's still being discussed with the industries and NGOs and with the entire ecosystem that will be affected by the law. The fact is that we don't know so much about AI today.
One of the concerns is that the lines of authorship get blurry.
How to create a good act, legal act, to formalize the situation, who's the creator. Because right now, in general, author is a creator. Author is an author of the music. But still using the AI model, it's look very difficult. Have to adjust the AI to that legal system, not different way.
As legal solutions are being worked on, artists can also take advantage of the benefits of AI.
Every now and then, AI proves helpful. For instance, if I wanted to perform my piece in a different style, instead of describing it to my producer, I simply play a version that AI generated based on the song that I had already recorded, lyrics included.
AI can also help you find those missing notes.
I want to learn something new. No problem, I just click and my ChatGPT just give me some new notes from the composers I like.
Today, there are over 1.5 million AI models on the web, including Poland's Bielik. And given that AI technology is a double-edged sword, it's crucial to remember which side to hone.
The recent raid of the premises of Ukrainian businessman Timur Mindic by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau in Ukraine marked the beginning of the country's attempt to tackle the issue of corruption standing in the way of Ukraine's EU accession. Even though Mindic's detention was unsuccessful, the clampdown might have broader implications as anti-corruption prosecutors initiated an internal probe into a possible leak of information leading to the suspect's escape. Sir Robin Niblett, Distinguished Fellow at the Chatham House, joins me on the program to discuss how the latest developments could affect Ukraine's international profile and domestic affairs. Good evening, sir, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good evening.
So, in the latest news, we've learned that Prime Minister Julia Sviridенko dismissed the supervisory board of Energoatom. That's the news from about an hour. Is this a sign of bigger troubles for Ukraine to come?
Well, this is bad timing, to put it mildly, at a time when Ukrainian forces are under severe assault in Pokrovsk, and the Eastern Front is looking vulnerable because of a lack of sufficient troops, amongst other things. At the same time as Russia has increased significantly, as we know, its attack on Ukrainian energy infrastructure, even hitting substations of nuclear power plants, to have at the same time this internal investigation taking place, is very bad timing. Bad timing domestically, obviously, because it undercuts confidence in the government at a critical moment going into it's going to be a very difficult winter, but also internationally at a time where international peace negotiations over the future of Ukraine are on hold, should we say, with Donald Trump having lost interest again for a while in the Ukraine conflict. I think the timing is very unfortunate for Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. So this clampdown and possibly the ones that are going to follow when it comes to this anti-corruption case, do you think it's really about fighting corruption, or is it also about the domestic politics?
Look, I don't have enough inside information to know definitively. What it would strike me is that this, as we understand it, as being a long-standing investigation. It's been going on for roughly 15 months, according to the prosecutor's office. Obviously, it is unfortunate also that there was an effort to try and bring the prosecutor's office and the anti-corruption group that leads these investigations under presidential authority back in July. We have to assume, obviously, the negotiation at that point had been going on for close to a year. Having kept the anti-corruption office independent of presidential authority, now we have this big exposure of ministers that are close to the government. So I think my sense is this is the continuation of a long-standing investigation. There have been reports that I've come across in the past of suspicion that Ukraine's energy infrastructure in particular had not been particularly well protected. There's been a rush to try and provide it with hardening and the capacity for it to withstand the kinds of attacks the Russians have been undertaking. That kind of rush often leads to scope for corruption to take place. So look, the way I'm reading it is it's a genuine anti-corruption investigation, and it's ensnaring some people close to the government if they're proven.
You mentioned this earlier before in our conversation, but how do you think that this situation in Ukraine is actually going to influence its standing on the international stage in face of the ongoing war? I mean, we've seen only but a few months ago Prime Minister Julia Sviridенko going to Washington, signing the rare air minerals deal, something very important for Ukraine, one of what was supposed to be security guarantees, and now we're having this situation within the government. How do you think Ukraine is going to recover from this?
I mean, if I were to be a little cynical, I would say that from the point of view of the Trump administration, this isn't a big deal. As long as American companies aren't being affected, the way the Trump administration approaches this, its approach to the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, in a way is to not be particularly interested in it if it is not affecting American companies. So personally, I just don't think this is going to have much of an impact on the Trump administration's approach to the conflict, or its willingness to continue supplying the kind of intelligence that's necessary for Ukraine forces, or for its willingness, to the extent that it can, to continue allowing European governments and the Ukrainian government to purchase US military equipment. So I think on the US side, my reading of it would be that this will not be fundamental or a big issue. Where it worries me more is on the European side. And on the European side, we have a discussion going on right now inside the EU to the extent to which Ukraine can start to undertake some of the negotiation chapters to be able to begin its succession process sort of informally, without yet there having been formal acceptance by all of the government to open the negotiations. And this will simply provide ammunition to governments in Bratislava, in Hungary, in Budapest, to say that, oh, well, look, why are we opening negotiations with a government that's getting involved in where there's potential corruption? The effort to accelerate the process of taking on EU regulations, which is so important to be able to kind of drive that positive European connection to Ukraine, will undoubtedly be affected by this. It'll give ammunition to those who do not want to get the EU closer to Ukraine.
This seems like a certain sort of paradox, because it seems to be the case that by taking this very step to satisfy the EU in its EU accession road, this could actually backfire for Ukraine, don't you think?
Well, it plays two ways. As you're saying, it shows that the government is taking corruption seriously. It also shows, if these allegations are proven to be true, that corruption penetrates very deeply. This is a very senior minister. And a very close ally, you mentioned Timur Mindic himself, close ally of the president. And, these are, how can I put it? Yes, it looks good that investigations are taking place into anti-corruption, but when you see it so close to the top levers of power, it's going to raise doubts. How much more will they discover? And as European governments are looking to commit long-term funding to Ukraine, they want to make sure that money's well spent. So it's going to be a rocky period, undoubtedly. I think what is worrying is the level of this investigation and the kind of people who are being brought into it. This is not generalized corruption that is being exposed. It's high level, and that will, cause concerns, I think, in Brussels and some European capitals.
We've also heard some domestic voices. We've heard from former Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko's party that called for the cabinet of ministers to resign. Quite a particular request to have. Do you think that the cabinet of ministers is actually going to consider that President Zelenskyy is actually going to consider this possibility of taking that very drastic step during such a difficult time?
And hard for me to predict. Obviously, there's no love lost between the two of them. And President Zelenskyy and his government have undertaken prosecutions against Petro Poroshenko in recent months. So there's a feeling of tit for tat going on here between these two very important leaders. And it's, again, not something positive to have at this stage. The Russian trolls and bot farms will be trying to deepen the divisions, create a sense of uncertainty around President Zelenskyy, and clearly any kind of internal disputes create additional worry. You've got pressure now to talk about some type of, to come back on elections, the idea that maybe elections should be undertaken in 2026, even if there isn't a ceasefire, for elections to take place under a moment of internal scrutiny of this sort, again, is going to make life a lot more difficult. On the positive side, you can say, yes, at least these things are being investigated. This is a democracy, and in any democracy, there will be investigations of corruption. Corruption does not just take place in Ukraine. We've got plenty of EU governments that have, which have had similar problems. I'm thinking of this government of Spain right now, where close allies of Pedro Sanchez have just been prosecuted. So I think, there's an opportunity here to say, we're being European, we're being transparent, we're investigating these issues. It's just, Spain isn't involved directly in a war against its own country at the time, and therefore these issues can be taken more as just the backwards and forwards of democracy. But in Ukraine, it's much, much more serious.
Thank you very much, sir. Robin Niblett, Distinguished Fellow at the Chatham House, was my guest here on World News Tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. And so this would be all for now. Thank you for joining us here. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment. Good night.